If you had walked into New York Harbor on a fog-heavy morning in 1919, you would have seen something so unbelievable that newspapers struggled to describe it without sounding insane. A silent steel ship drifting in from the Atlantic, no crew on deck, no signal flags, no anchor dropped, just a ghost. Wartime had produced its share of mysterious vessels, but this one was different. The hull carried no national markings. The lifeboats were untouched. The boilers were still warm. Food was left on plates in the galley as if the crew had stepped away only moments before. And yet, when Harbor Patrol boarded the vessel, they found not a single living soul. This ghost ship would eventually be recorded in Federal Maritime Archives as Case File 3107-B, but historians still call it the Atlantic Wanderer. Its discovery sparked one of the strangest investigations in early 20th century American history, an investigation involving missing radio operators, coded wartime transmissions, and a captain whose final diary entry remained classified for decades. The story began months earlier in June 1919, when the world was still staggering from the aftermath of World War I. The United States had emerged as a global maritime power, controlling key shipping routes. Merchant vessels resumed their voyages across the Atlantic, and the U.S. Navy monitored them carefully. Among these ships was a steel cargo vessel named SS Cormorant, registered in Boston and captained by an experienced navigator named Henry Alton, famous for his flawless record and unnerving calm. The cargo was ordinary: agricultural tools, textiles, and medical supplies bound for post-war European relief. But the ship carried one unusual crew member, its radio operator, Anton Raz, a young immigrant whose uncanny ability to detect faint or unusual signals had drawn both admiration and suspicion. He had worked with experimental Navy radio telegraphy teams and sometimes claimed he could pick up transmissions that didn't belong to any ship. The Cormorant departed Boston on June 28th under clear skies. The first 4 days passed uneventfully. The ship transmitted its routine updates, coordinates, speed, cargo status. But on the fifth night, a strange message crackled into U.S. Navy listening stations. Unidentified signal west, not SOS, investigating. No distress calls had been issued in that region. No ships were missing. The message was noted, but not considered urgent. After that transmission, the Cormorant went silent. No more updates, no acknowledgments, nothing. For 2 weeks, the U.S. Navy searched thousands of square miles of ocean. No debris, no oil slick, no lifeboats. The vessel had seemingly vanished into thin air. Then, on July 15th, it drifted silently into New York Harbor. Harbor Patrol initially suspected mutiny or piracy, but the ship told a different story. No signs of violence, no gunfire damage, no broken locks. Cargo undisturbed. Navigation charts open on the table with the last recorded position marked neatly. The engine room showed recent activity. The metal still radiated heat. But the most disturbing discovery lay in the passageway leading to the radio room. Sailors described an intense cold, completely out of place in the July heat. Their breath frosted in the air. Inside the radio room, they found Mraz's equipment still running, headphones resting on the table, and a half-written note in the logbook. Signal repeating, not human. Investigators tried to dismiss it as fatigue or delusion, but the Navy kept the logbook anyway. In the captain's quarters, they found something even stranger: Henry Alton's leather-bound diary. Early entries were orderly and professional, but the final pages grew more frantic. notes about fluctuating magnetic readings, strange vibrations beneath the hull at night, and a glowing haze on the horizon. The last entry read, "Midnight. The sea is glowing again. Men terrified. Mraz insists the signal is intelligent, but not a plea for help. He says it is observing us. I do not wish to believe him. If anything happens, tell whoever finds this, we approached a light. It was not a ship. God help us." The diary ended there. Navy investigations were led by Commander William Porter, a skeptic who had previously exposed maritime hoaxes. But even he was shaken by the evidence. Engine temperatures suggested the crew had been active no more than 36 hours before the ship was found. Food in the galley had barely begun to spoil. Personal belongings remained neatly stored. There were no signs of illness, panic, or escape. And yet, the entire 29-man crew was gone. The strangest clue emerged when the Navy reviewed radio logs. The mysterious signal Mraz had detected continued to repeat for days after the ship was found. Operators described it as a mechanical pulse, perfectly rhythmic and unlike any known maritime pattern. And then, silence. The signal vanished. Decades later, declassified documents revealed that two other vessels, a British freighter and a Portuguese trawler, reported similar pulses during the same week in 1919 in the same region of the North Atlantic. Both ships experienced compass malfunctions. Both crews reported an eerie vibration in the air, but neither disappeared. The Cormorant remained the only ship that went silent and came back empty. Historians have proposed many explanations: rogue electromagnetic storms, undersea volcanic activity, rare atmospheric distortions, or even mass shared hallucination. But none of these theories account for the missing bodies or the untouched cargo. Folklorists point to centuries-old sailor tales about singing waters and glowing tides, rare but natural phenomena. But even they admit that those stories never involved entire crews vanishing without a trace. Oceanographers studying the region have suggested something even stranger: a rare oceanic electrical event strong enough to interfere with human neurological function, something like a marine version of the aurora. But even that doesn't explain the empty ship. To this day, visitors to the National Archives in Washington can view portions of Case File 3107B, although several pages remain heavily redacted. The Cormorant was repaired and later returned to service, but sailors who worked aboard it swore the radio room remained unnaturally cold. Some refused to enter it altogether. The real question isn't what happened to the ship, it's what happened to the men. Whatever occurred left no footprints, no bodies, no distress signals, nothing. Even today, faint repeating pulses sometimes appear on abandoned maritime frequencies. Most operators shrug them off as static, but others note the rhythm, far too precise to be random. Perhaps the Cormorant wasn't the first vessel to hear the pulse. Perhaps it was simply the first to answer it.